Team NIC, Team LUMS, Saima, Numan Saab, Nuzat, I saw when I came here, AWS team, lots of friends here. I could see Shahzad there as well. Mohsin is there, Hiraj Saab is there, Qazi Saab is here. So lots of friends around and my own team. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here today and putting my two bits to this very important initiative, which I think would go a long way in terms of promoting startups and the fintech, opportunities in Pakistan to the next level. I always need a reason to come back to LUMS and NIC. Now we have a more formal collaboration with NIC as well, with the BOP Innovation Lab. I saw, some success stories there. We have not been part of those success stories so far, but we are hoping, under the leadership of Imran, that next time when I come here, there will be, a couple of stories coming out from our innovation lab as well. But the idea is that, to integrate academia with corporate sector, as Simon said, and then work together in developing an ecosystem which is much needed. We need that trained HR, desperately need that. Monis is privy to all of that, so as Qazi Saab. But on the other hand, we also have to play our due role, and I'm very pleased to see that there's only one bank which has an innovation lab here. I'm pleased to see that as a competition, but to be very honest, I would like to see more banks coming through. And my hope and wish is that next time when I come here, although a couple of success stories will come out from our innovation lab, but there will be more banks participating with you, because without the financial sector integration, I don't think that the fintech can take off, and so as the startups. So very important initiative in that sense. So I start out with the evolution of the banking in Pakistan, not going too far away, but in the last decade, the brick and mortar is surely replaced by the digital disruption, and there is a considerate need that we have to move away from those traditional ways of banking to the new ways, where the customer experience from a conventional tools is now have to graduate to the digital customer journey. With digital wallets and democratization of internet, this transition has spurred. And in fact, the boost has come through while there were lots of negatives there. We lost lots of our loved ones as well in this catastrophe. But the good thing that came out in the COVID was the leapfrogging of digitization and adoption to that. The space of the digital banking is evolving very fast. So as I speak, it feels like that, we've already kind of behind the curve as far as the international trends are concerned. So looking at now where the world is moving, is Web3 and, blockchain based digital wallets, based on the strength of, crypto and NFTs. In fact, Imran is here. We also explored a possibility of doing an NFT, but then the regulation came in our way. And as Saima mentioned, on the public policy side, I think those things need to be debated for us to make sure that these global trends, we are very much part and parcel of it and take the advantage of that situation. We have 32 banks in Pakistan, licensed banks in Pakistan, but the industry dynamics are very interesting. 80% of the deposits and liabilities vest with 10% top 10 banks. And if I were to cut it down further, in top 5 banks, perhaps that number is, is 60 to 70, 65 to 75, 70%. Now that makes the entire industry concentrated to very few players. But on the other hand, if you look at the flip side of it, it also gives the opportunity that those 22 banks have to look at some new areas and disruptions in the technology space to take the advantage of the situation, not to compete with these giants, but to create their own niche. And we have seen that trend coming through as well. So while and this is, we're in top 10 banks, so we are very much part and parcel of it. For us to respond to the changing environment takes some time, but for a smaller institution, it takes much quicker. Monas, I know, is working very closely with the B Bank, which is the largest bank in Pakistan. For them to turn the ship around will take a while. While the smaller players, like you're also working with JS, will respond to these kind of, Hiraj work with JS closely, they can respond to these changing trends very quickly. Even for somebody like us, it takes some time. On the lending space, because that's the important area and largely out of the scope of digital banking. In fact, to the banking space as such, 60 to 70% of the bank deposits are diverted towards government paper. The remaining 30 to 40% are predominantly benefits the large corporates. And if I look at the consumer space, on the mortgage side is merely 0.5% of the total GDP. And the consumer lending itself is merely 10% of the total private sector lending. So therefore, that gives a big opportunity on the lending space for the digital banks to approach these consumer-related products and try and offer some unique offerings where the banks, the larger banks, are still lagging behind. And that, to my mind, is a big opportunity. It's a big money spinner for the startups and fintech. I know, Monas and Kashif has already taken a lead on this. They're doing a brilliant job there, and a few others. But there's still, the space is too big, too large a space. In terms of deposit side, the total number of depositors are around 57.6 million, which is, again, not a number to be very proud of. It's around 20% of the total population. But that, on the flip side, it gives you the opportunity of what can be done there as well. Our deposit to GDP ratio is merely 32%, as opposed to the world average of 70%. So there is a room there that we can actually double the entire space, in fact, more than double. And if you look at even places like India, the number is 72%. USA, for that matter, is 101%. So given all those numbers, I think it's very important that we need to position ourselves, the fintech space, the startup space, must look at these pockets of opportunities and work in tandem with the organization like ourselves, who will take forever to respond to the changing environment. And that's the reason why we are here in NIC and LUMS, because we think that these collaborations will work in future to deliver better from a financial inclusion space. Interestingly enough, if you look at the grey economy of Pakistan, although that number is debatable, but the IMF number is around 36.3%. And lack of documentation, which I talk about later on, is a major impediment in the banking sector to take off, or the startups of fintech to take off. I think that the fintech and startup can play a major role there as well. We are a complex country, by the way. It's spread out on 796,000 square kilometers. Uh, it has 220 million population. So it's scattered all over. And therefore, the only way to increase the penetration is to go a digital way. Although I still think there is room for better branch network, but it's the digital space which can turn things around quickly. It will be cost effective and efficient also when we look at the geographic and the demographic landscape of Pakistan. We lack cross-border payments because of capital controls. We are still grappling with getting our issues sorted out on the current account and reserves, which seems to be the case for a while. So, but nevertheless, at least the incoming remittances could be worked on, and we have done a good job there also in terms of offering of RDA. On the global best practices, I think the banking industry in Pakistan has done pretty well. So implementation of Basel III, having a KYC or compliance requirements standards, keeping at par with the international standards, thanks to FATF, has brought us to a point where the industry itself, on a risk management side, is well positioned, and from a control perspective, it's very well it's very well designed to make sure that with the integration taking place with the technology space, those possible gaps are built in. A major development that has taken place recently is the digital banking licensing space. In January only, the government of Pakistan, the State Bank of Pakistan has dished out 5 licenses there. It's well thought out plan, whereby they will the initial offering will be of digital retail banking, and they will be offering all the retail related, which is a big gap, as I discussed with you earlier, in Pakistan's banking landscape. Start out with a pilot of 1.4 billion rupees, which is a reasonable level of capital, 1.5 billion rupees. And in 3 years, it has to be, if the pilot goes well, it will be increased, it is required to be increased to 4 billion rupees. And then in another 2 years, which is 5 years from the date you get the license for DRB, Digital Retail Bank, you can actually opt for a license and increase your capital to 10 billion to have a digital full-scale banking. So therefore, it is whereby you will be able to then tap the SMEs and corporates and everybody as well. Frankly, to my mind, even if we can find ourselves to digital retail banks alone, that itself is a huge opportunity. I know, some people are working very actively in the space of SME and agriculture, and they will also come into the full banking license space. But nevertheless, it's the starting point with consumers, which is the big opportunity here. So in terms of the integration of e-commerce with banking, we have done a reasonable job in terms of creating a good domestic banking and payment infrastructure. In fact, in many ways, we could be a regional exemplar there. Unfortunately, we have been stigmatized for all the wrong reasons, but there are certain pocket of islands of excellence as well. And in terms of coverage, growth, rate of growth, and improvement in technology service offering, I think we have done a pretty good job in the last 3 years. And if you look at the numbers of how the mobile banking, internet, and e-commerce has done, then the growth numbers are very impressive. We're talking about 119% in mobile banking. We're talking about 58% in internet banking. We're talking about 225% in e-commerce. I admit that the base was low, but nevertheless, it is still an impressive number. But the barriers to financial inclusion are very much there, and with the technology adoption, I think we can overcome those barriers also. The typical barriers are the economic informality in the economy. It's the limited access of banks and financial services because of the geographic spread, as I've talked about earlier. There are many places where still the representation of banks are not there. I was heading up National Savings, where by design, and he knows that very well, by design we were required to have at least one branch in districts, whether we make money off them or not. But when you talk about an industry which is 80% privatized, which is banking industry, then the considerations are very different from a public sector. This thing, even the remaining 20% people like ourselves who are public sector, we are also under pressure to perform well and remain in line with the competition. So therefore, the collaborations are become even more important. Limited financial and digital literacy, big problem. We need to work together, LUMS, NIC, corporations like ourselves, yourselves, of how we can work together there. We'll be happy to talk to AWS about it and take it forward. If you think that there's some kind of digital literacy program which is required to be rolled out, we'll be happy to support you on that one. Then my favorite is the low level of women inclusion. We have 50% of our population women, but unfortunately, their participation in our employment space is less than 20%. If I look at the industry average, that's around 38%. So even if we catch up with the industry average, although our women are so enterprising and so resilient, that I would like to see a better number than the industry average. But nevertheless, I'm willing to settle at the industry average as well. That will help us in increasing our GDP by 60%. And that will obviously help and impact on the overall banking industry also. I cannot, while talking about the digital space, I cannot undermine the importance of brick and mortar either. We are still on the brick and mortar side, are lagging behind as far as the industry averages are concerned, the global averages are concerned. So if I look at the global average, it's around 10.8 branches per 1,000 people. In Pakistan, it's 10.3. We're not too far behind, but our dynamics are very different. Our number is supposed to be much larger. So if I were to quote you a number of, let's say, USA, that's 25.7 branches per. And the technology adoption there, by the way, is at a different level as well. We talk about India, it's 14.7%, Sri Lanka is 18.6%. These are all numbers which give us some kind of semblance of, while we have to focus on the technology space, but let's not lose the eye on the ball as far as brick and mortar is concerned. And, my sense is that brick and mortar has to work in tandem with the technology side, and it will only complement each other. In 2015, State Bank of Pakistan introduced National Financial Inclusion Strategy, NFIS, with the objective of having, universal financial inclusion. And that focused mainly on leveraging, mobile wallets and easy accounts, increasing access points, implementation of National Payment Gateway, a good work was done there. And it also had a plan of having, of development of remittance gateway. So, in a way, RD has kind of one side of the equation taken care of, but the real sense of the remittance gateway is still lacking. And we can figure out how we can work together with people like AWS, learning from your international experience, 190 countries and 1 million customers, which you can guide us on what required to be done there. And we'll be very happy to partner with you to go to the central bank with our friends in fintech and make a representation of what the other countries have done and what we do to make sure that it's a success. Two initiatives that we are very proud of is RAST and Roshan Digital Account. Roshan Digital Account needs no introduction. It's essentially a remittance, a foreign remittance receiving portal, whereby, so far almost $6 billion of flows have gone back and forth. RAST, on the other end, is for the local payments. It's an end-to-end digital payment system for individual businesses and government entities, but it is still at the infancy stage, and we see this to be a next big thing, thanks to support from Karan Das, which helped in creating that payment gateway there. On the financial inclusion agenda, since I'm representing BOP, so a little bit of marketing of BOP as well. Sorry. Yes. So, following the strategy, NFIS, I believe and we believe that in order for technology adoption and offering it to the customers, it's very important that you adopt the technology within the organization as well. So, digitization within the organization is the starting point. And if you remember, in National Savings also, we did the same thing. We transformed the entire those FITA files to then sending us the approvals on WhatsApp, and we used to respond to them on WhatsApp. These are typical files in the government which have this kind of wrapping around it, typical wrapping around it. So we kind of try to do away with that. For that, the starting point was to make people adopt internally to the technology. If they feel comfortable with that, that's the only way they can service their customers also. So as a starting point, we have started digitizing our HR function. We've started digitization our loan origination system. And we have also adopted very aggressively, and that helps us in our financial inclusion initiative, which is a financial inclusion initiative as well, is a portal called LRMIS, which is Land Revenue Management Information System. So from the agriculture side, this has transformed the agriculture lending in a big way, and we are very much one of the most active banks in that space. And this was 2016 actually. And there has been some graduation there. We offered Khidmat card with Punjab Social Protection Authority, which has now 1 million vulnerable population benefiting from. These are all digital cash disbursements to people from transgender to pregnant women to young girls going to the school. These are brilliant initiatives. We've recently launched Punjab Mazdoor card with Punjab Employee Social Security Institute, PESI as we call it, for underserved labor class and blue collar segment, whereby we are offering certain discounts to them on the schools and hospitals and uniform and shoes, whereby the effective spending ability of the people have increased from, let's say, 25,000 rupees to 36,000 rupees. And that is also making sure that the minimum wage that the government has set is also coming through in the system, and people have not been shortchanged. One project that we are all very proud of as a team, Nofal is here, Nofal is spearheading that initiative, is on the economy housing. With the Heritage Foundation, we have done a project in interior of Sindh, which people now, in their affection for us, have started calling it BOP Pono Village. It was Pono Village, whereby the entire village is now being adopted by us, where women build the houses on their own through mud and bamboo. And then that creates their livelihood as well. And then we have developed a microfinance endowment fund, whereby that money comes back to us. These are not donations. The money given to that woman. The home is also in the name of women, so that women empowerment is taken care of. And that money comes back to the endowment fund and then given them out for their entrepreneurial activities, development of their own community. However, one area which is missing, a big opportunity for startups and fintech, is in the government space. In Punjab, we are fortunate to have IT board, which is a very progressive organization. But the rest of the provinces are still lagging behind as far as technology adoption is concerned. With the PITB and Bank of Punjab very active in the technology space, I think there's big opportunity still in the government sector, especially in the province, to offer more technology-based solutions. And we are working very closely with Punjab Revenue Board in that context. Now, with the digital world becoming a household, for me, the first thing, most important thing is whether the Wi-Fi is there at home or office or hotel that I check in, rather than any other thing. You see the toilet later on, perhaps, but you go and check out the
Wi-Fi connectivity.
Exactly. So all commerce is becoming e-commerce, to my mind. And while there are headwinds in the payment methods but the payment methods are on track, and we see some kind of traction there. So if I look at the Q1, a slightly stale number, but these are the latest numbers available to us, of 2022, the payments and transactions under PRISM, which is a Pakistan real-time interbank settlement mechanism. This is the technology-based settlement that we do instantaneously within the banking setup. And e-banking, the transactions amount to 159 trillion and 27 trillion respectively. 159 in PRISM and e-banking 27 trillion, as opposed to the paper-based transaction of 42 trillion only. So that gives you a perspective of how things are transforming in Pakistan. The sooner we react to this changing landscape, better it is. And the line between online and offline commerce is blurring for sure. Steadily moving into the B2B space, banks can play an instrumental role in collaborating, making their own digital offering more robust to make sure that we take the advantage and ride on the back of this changing opportunity. Customer co-creation, a novel form of strategic partnership between various players. But to my mind, the most important thing remains, and I'm saying this at the right place right now, is the domestic capacity enhancement. And as I talked about it earlier, we'll be happy to collaborate with you and take it forward. AWS needs no introduction, cloud computing platform, number of customers we talked about earlier, the representation in the countries as well. Your footprint in Pakistan will stimulate this local digital startup ecosystem in a big way. And as Saima already said, what is expected from you, we will play our due role as corporates. LUMS is there, NIC is there to facilitate and making sure that we work together to give you the necessary comfort. Your presence will help us in plugging that infrastructural gap that exists right now. And such services are absolutely inevitable when it comes to the next level of growth in fintech. In the fintech space, also open banking and banking as a service is also picking up very fast, making it easier for the new players to enter the market and the existing players to expand big time. We see on the e-commerce space and fintech, people are doing a lot of marketing on the social media, but the payment piece is lacking. And if the paid by link is somehow introduced and encourage people to follow, then we see this as a major opportunity. And for the fintech community, leveraging the AWS tool set can also work to bring smaller businesses into the cloud through a merchant registration platform. For tier 2, tier 3 small scale businesses, fintech can play a major role. Banks are not even in the tier 1 right now. So tier 2, tier 3 are still far of a dream for the banks. And this is a big opportunity for fintech and startup to look at. The typical problem statement for startups, which I will leave behind after my long and stretched address, sorry, Badr and Salma, for your roundtable, is so many of our businesses are not digitized from the payment side. What are some other novel ways in which the fintech community enables AWS can help improve this situation? I've already done my marketing enough. BOP Innovation Center we are hoping will have profound impact on the startup ecosystem, strong industry academia partnership, provide entrepreneurs with access to resources, much needed access to resources, network and knowledge. And the main 4 areas that we focus on is collaboration with the fintech and startup, customer problem solving, optimize digital experience, and stimulate digital culture. NIC contributed significantly to prioritizing entrepreneurship, particularly in the low-income communities. With the inequality increasing in wealth and income, I think this is a big opportunity for the low-income communities to look at this entrepreneurship in the digital space. And we need to work together to make sure that there is some kind of balance in the society. And we've seen that across the border in India, how that inequality is kind of subsided with technology becoming an integral part of their economy. The collaboration between AWS and NIC, we see the ecosystem for the Pakistani startup space to be thriving. I'm very optimistic that the BOP's Innovation Center at LUMS, NIC, shall play its part in furthering this much-needed digitization drive and bringing about the future of banking in Pakistan. I'll leave behind a few books for you and
Please.
which will keep on reminding you about your inaugural visit.
Very first.
Yeah, so we hope that keep on reminding you how great that visit was. And it's about the heritage of Punjab. We'll share it with you, a few other books as well.
Thank you.
And we will be very keen to take this discussion ahead in terms of having some kind of concrete results out of it. So collaborating with AWS. Shahzad, you are here.
Yes.
I know that you were already talking to Faisal,
And
and Imran is also here now. So if we can talk about some concrete things to be done. I'm happy to be partners with people like yourselves and systems and whoever else is interested. Let's work together in making things easier for your arrival in Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.